Okay, so welcome everybody. This is we're back. I'm excited that we're back. That alone is just exciting. Bill knows because we we were like, you know what, we're gonna take a little break and come back because we were starting to see folks not able to attend. And this is nice and cozy, which I think is fine. But we did want to sort of really just ratchet it back during the holidays. I wasn't around anyway, so that was fine. But really just make sure that we got the opportunity when we knew they would be around, and start again. So we're back. It's September. We're going to we have Dom Zook, who is, am I saying your name right? Dom Zook? It's pretty easy, I think. I think I'm saying it right.
Yeah,
Welcome.
like book. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think you actually have that somewhere. It says rhymes with, yeah. So
Right.
Dom Zook.
Yeah.
He's both a new CAR-PGA member, so we're excited to have him, and also going to be our guest today. We have a few orders of business. I will look through that just to see. And while we're doing that, my name again is Mike Tresca. I'm the committee chair for the CAR-PGA. I've been, I hope you've all been busy gaming safely as best you can. Certainly that's something that I've been trying to do. Although I'll tell you, it's actually been hard to game just because people's schedules have been tough. So my own game, I think, probably stopped somewhere midsummer, and we're hoping to sort of pick it up again. Not this week. Not normally we play on Sunday, so maybe next Sunday. So hopefully we'll get more opportunities to play. But the only thing I wanted to talk about as the order of business, and I had mentioned it in our letter, was really just the state of things with COVID, because that's all we talk about, right? What's interesting is that we did in the past come out with an infographic that really gave some advice around COVID. And some of that advice still applies with the Delta variants, other variants popping up. I think it's important to see and look at that. But conversely, it's sort of an interesting snapshot in time to see how our thoughts have evolved on what's safe in gaming. There's actually a tool out there that lets you look at your risk factors. And it's always interesting to put tabletop gaming in the context of what risk factors those are, which include shouting, laughing, yelling, being in a group of 2 to 5. So yes, we do qualify certain things within the context. So it's not sort of like, calmly playing bingo or something, although bingo can get pretty raucous too, I'm sure. So you can do your risks assessments there. So there's really much better tools than we had. The other thing that's changed is we're no longer really worried about materials, right? So it used to be like you just worried about even like sharing dice or anything like that. That's been less the issue. Masking wasn't even a factor when we came out with the infographic. Obviously, that's been significantly ramped up. So it's interesting how the world changes. I wouldn't do another infographic. I think there's plenty of information out there. I also think the world has changed such that probably it's be very difficult to get an infographic that anybody would listen to. I think it was important for the CAR-PGA to try and be a leader in that space, but now I think there's plenty of other folks who've already sort of had that dialogue, and either you're going to listen or you're not. I think people have made up their minds. The perfect example of that is Gen Con. Gen Con's going on now, and there have been pictures of Gen Con and perspectives of Gen Con of various folks that I follow, and some folks were like, masking rigor was great. The dealer room was really well managed. There were less people, which was fine, but nobody's complaining about that. And then I saw a picture of what we always call that massive crowd outside the hall that crushes in to go in, which if you've been there, you know what it's like. And certainly I have my own pictures of that. What is sort of gleefully embraced and now sadly has a tinge of horror to it if you're in the world of COVID. So it's just a very different circumstance. But this is the world we live in, which is everybody's going to have to make a decision on the level of risk they're tolerant of, right? So for us, my daughter isn't vaccinated yet. She's too young. So that's just something we have to consider. And my parents are elderly, and my mother is actually in a facility, an elder care facility. And if that happens, if I get it, the whole place locks down basically for everybody for 2 weeks. And that's happened to my family because there have been potential cases of COVID. So far, not on my mom's floor, but certainly enough to trigger a lockdown, which is very disruptive and upsetting for everybody involved. Nobody can visit, that kind of stuff. So once you get exposed to enough of that, you get real sensitive to your own risk, because I don't want to be that reason for why we wouldn't be able to visit my mom, or my dad wouldn't be able to visit my mom. So it is something that you have to figure out your tolerance. So it is, I think the CAR-PGA, as always, tries to be helpful in that context. But the reality is now at this point, we're not a leader and we don't need to be. I think everybody's sort of either made up their minds or sort of hard to figure that out. I do think conventions are working their way through this, the risk, with Gen Con being probably the chief example of the biggest and trying to figure that out. And I think Gen Con's done some other things. There's some virtual and remote and sort of different timing to try and get that to work right. But it is an interesting conversation because I think it will. I don't know that this is ever going to go away when we just say we'll all laugh at this. I think we were all hoping that was going to be the case. And I think the new world is contagious diseases, whatever they are just going to be a fact of life. And we're going to have a policy and a plan to manage them.
So I think the Dragon Con did a very good job, and we had 40,000 people there. I was on 5 panels there. Panels were all well done. They replaced the microphone covers for everyone. Everything got wiped down. Rooms are getting regularly wiped down.
Excellent.
40,000 people, and so far I don't know of any transmissions there, and nobody got contract. So I think that what we're seeing is what we should be doing anyway. Everyone had to be vaccinated or have a negative within 3 days, and everyone had to be masked inside. On the first day, I was there Thursday, the hotel staff, the attendees were wonderfully masked. The hotel staff was doing awful. But apparently Dragon Con cracked the whip on all the hotels. And from then on, they were doing a great job. So
fantastic.
I would like to see some of these precautions become the new norm.
Absolutely. And it is to your point, which I think is interesting, is there's a little bit of this dance of when do we mandate certain things? I've certainly seen it with several organizations where they just hesitate and they're sort of looking around to see who else is doing it. And then once they start jumping in, it becomes easier. To your point, this should just be the way it is. And I don't disagree, but it is interesting because I think different organizations, depending on their clout and depending on their influence, some of them are hesitant to say, this is the way it's got to be. But we have seen conventions do that. We've also seen conventions punt. There's a few conventions in Connecticut that basically said, well, we follow government and state guidelines. Like, that's not enough for me. I expect you to say, you do need vaccination or a test or whatever. So it's interesting too, as to how they're going to manage it. But that's great to hear. So that was Dragon Con?
Yeah, DreamHack here in November has unfortunately postponed for another year again. So yeah. I don't know exactly what their concern was. That's owned by a European company. So part of their ability to get in and out safely. So that was unfortunate. We've got another big anime show here, MomoCon, which is usually 30 to 40,000 people. They had to kill their normal weekend and doing a winter event at a big facility. So they're going to follow similar procedures. So yeah, since I'm keeping my events, they're essentially hybrid.
Right.
So some in person for those. I did an event Tuesday, about 50 people at Kennesaw State University here in the Atlanta area, which went very well.
Excellent.
Great social distancing, great procedures, great protocols. So.
Yep. I mean, when it works right. There's a plan that we know what the playbook probably should be, but some of it is making sometimes unpopular decisions, and some of it is the resourcing to enforce it. And a lot of that, to your point, is do you put the pressure on the hotel? Do you put the pressure on this? Does the convention facility help? So it's interesting, but I think it's doable. It's just a question of how. We were laughing. The Big E is in Massachusetts over here, and it's just a massive event in the tri-state area by us. Not even tri-state, sort of a little bit north, and they came out 2 days before the event. They came out with masking for inside stalls, and again, conventions get this already, and it was like big controversy. You're like, well, why? It should just be the thing. So it's just interesting because obviously not even all the big events are in agreement on how to do it. I'll be interested to see. I mean, Gen Con is just one of the many events in Indianapolis. How the other ones are managed, if it's a similar protocol. So we'll see. Because of course it makes it easier, right? If they all follow it the same, it's easier for the next one.
And Gen Con's interesting because everyone who runs Gen Con is in Seattle. So they're kind of coming at this from a different, I feel like, standpoint as to what their state is doing, what Washington is doing versus what Indianapolis or Indiana is doing. And so I feel like they're probably being a bit stricter, which is great, which is what they should be doing. But yeah, it is interesting to see other events happening and how they're kind of tackling the same things that everyone else is kind of going through. And there's sometimes a stark difference, which is really interesting.
And to your point, Dom, the cross-state issue is a challenge as well, right? There's quite a bit of state variance. I work in my day job's recruiting. So one of the things we talk about is sort of virtual recruiting and virtual jobs where you report in and then you bring people together. And when you bring them together in person, all of a sudden you're going to have very different experiences from the individuals and when they come together. So, and then it matters. Didn't matter until then, right? And conventions are just bigger versions of that, right? Didn't matter until you come from Washington and I come from a different state where it's different, and then we all come together.
Right.
But it's interesting. So I talked to the Convention Visitors Bureau folks here. In fact, I had a call with one yesterday, and some of them were pointing to Lollapalooza as kind of the event that signaled how you do it. And that's what Dragon Con put in place. The exact saying, must be vaccinated or have a negative within 3 days and must be masked there.
Yep.
And Lollapalooza pulled it off, and everyone else saying that's kind of what you got to do.
And that's exactly my point, right? Which is sort of some of these venues, they may not be gaming venues, but the concept's the same. It's large people in a group and potentially yelling and screaming or whatever is going on. I think that's the way to do it. That's great. Any other comments before we start speaking to Dom's life story? I'm going to give him the Bill Bridges treatment. I don't know what that means, but it sounded good. It sounded good.
I knew I should have asked you a question while Mike was gone. And
oh, I love talking to Bill. Okay, so I think we'll move on to our next step, which is Dom. So welcome, Dom. I'm super excited for you to be here. You graciously volunteered, which is great, because I'd love to have a roster of speakers ahead of time rather than us thinking about, like who we like. And there's people we always want to invite, and you certainly are on my list. As we know your work from Saving Throw. But I thought my first question I always start with, which is it's a softball question, but it's an important one, is how did you get into gaming initially?
Well, I got into gaming. My family was relatively into board games, but not like, Trivial Pursuit was about as heavy as we got, Monopoly, Sorry, those types of things. Then I got into video games, played a lot of tabletop Pac-Man in my day. And then when my family moved to up near Seattle, and I was introduced to my first RPG, which was the basic D&D first edition. Mm-hmm. And shortly after that, second edition came out, and that was kind of I was lost forever.
Okay, that's I think that's probably where you're not alone in that. And was that something that you found a local group, or was it family members? How did that start in terms of?
Yeah, I met, I was in third grade at the time, and I moved into that school, and I met this kid, and he was all like, let's play. And where I'd go over to his house, he's like, have you ever heard of Dungeons and Dragons? And I was all like, not really, except the cartoon. I knew the cartoon.
Yeah.
And he was all like, well, let's do this. And he showed me, and we went from there.
That's awesome. And that was that basic, you said?
Yeah, we started with basic. We started with the red basic rules. And yeah, we went from there, and we moved into second edition. That was when I really started like picking up a lot of things. So I had a mixture of first edition and second edition books at home for a long time. And then and I don't know, we played a bunch of things. We wrote our own RPG, a Star Wars RPG, because we didn't like the one that was out at the time and stuff like that. We were just goofing off, and then in high school, I think other extracurricular activities sort of took over, and I kind of dropped in college and stuff. I kind of tangentially kept in the RPG space, and then but it wasn't playing. I didn't have a regular game or anything like that. And then several years ago, in 2013, 2012, 2013, I was talking with friends, and we were like, you know what I miss? Playing role-playing games, and we should do that again. And we were commiserating because we both grew up with second edition, and so we were like, let's play a second edition game. And so we got people together and started playing second edition. This is before fifth ed came out, and I didn't know what Pathfinder was at the time, so I was just like focused on second edition. And so we were playing that for a while, and a friend who was playing in the group, was trying to learn the rules, and we were trying to teach him, tobacco and everything like that. And which is not a great way to get people into gaming.
Saying tobacco, like, people like,
yeah. So we had, I was like, oh, there should be videos teaching people how to do this. And we looked, and there were only a couple of videos, and none of them were about second edition. So we were like, you know what? Let's do it. We have a film background. We're actors. We're performers. We're filmmakers. We can do a really good job making a tutorial on how to play second edition. And the more I got people involved in the project, people were like, "Why second edition?" I was like, "I don't know. It's the one I know.
The game I play."
Yeah. So they were like, well, how about Pathfinder? Because again, still fifth edition was still a glint in Chris Perkins' eye, and no one knew that was coming out. So Pathfinder was the new hotness, or new-ish hotness. So we said, sure, yeah, Pathfinder. So we started playing Pathfinder, and then put together a show, and thus was born Saving Throw from there.
That's awesome. And so, and what time was that? What was the year time frame?
That was, we started in 2013 with everything, and then we did our first stream in June of 2014, and then basically we had our Kickstarter in 2014, our first stream in 2014, and then we started streaming regularly and posting regular content in 2015.
So was this sort of planned out long-term vision, or was it, let's figure it out as we go? What was your thinking as you sort of got into that?
We initially, the Kickstarter was just for a Pathfinder tutorial, and we had kind of written out what we wanted to cover and what it would take and all of that stuff. And we didn't really think anything of it. We got some good responses about doing a Pathfinder tutorial, so we thought we would be pretty set there. And we raised more money than we needed. And so anytime that happens, you kind of go, okay, well, what else can I do?
Get real innovative after that.
Yeah. And I had just started, Geek and Sundry had very, very early beginnings. And one of the things they had was Tabletop with Will Wheaton. And I watched that, and I felt it was good. I really liked the production values of it all, but they weren't doing RPGs. They weren't playing RPGs. And I thought it would be really interesting to be able to do that with an RPG. And then a channel on Twitch, It Me JP, they were doing that with RPGs, although they were all playing remotely. And with very, Roll20 was still a very crude thing. I remember going to Gen Con, like the first year that Roll20 went to Gen Con, and they were talking, it was the creators of Roll20 were there. Now it's, a relatively large business and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, relatively, I guess, in the RPG sense, but
right. Yeah. Yes. True.
It's not IBM or anything.
Yeah.
But I was watching them, and I was like, we could do that, but we could do that at a table. With play around a table, that's what RPGs are like. That's what it feels like. I want people to feel like they're at the table with us. And so we with the extra money, I was like, hey, why don't we just add on a stream to this? Like, we can do that. So we rented out a theater that was set up to stream. Like, they were way ahead of their time. That theater's now closed,
oh wow,
unfortunately. But they were way ahead of their time. They had a multi-camera streaming outfit designed for theatrical performances, not for streaming as we know it. But they had the capability. And so we did that one show there, and I was all like, I can do this with off-the-shelf equipment for the amount that we have left over from the Kickstarter, and odds and ends that I have from filmmaking. And so I bought a switcher and threw in some camcorders that I had, and away we went. And it wasn't until we started streaming that I was realizing that it was a longer term proposition, that it was something that we could kind of keep going, because the tutorials cost a lot of money to make, but the streaming didn't cost us really anything at the time. We weren't paying anybody. Everyone was doing it for fun. We were shooting it in a garage, and outside of the initial equipment investment, it didn't cost us really anything. So it was a really interesting kind of time, because we were one of the first ones. And this is we started about 3 months before Critical Role started, so that wasn't even out yet. And so we're doing this thing in this garage, and no one is doing anything that we know similar to it. And of course, there's that problem of being the first at something doesn't mean you're the best at something or the biggest at something. And so while we were going here, other people were able to go on a stratospheric rise up because of various factors. But it's really interesting to have been there from the beginning of this sort of revolution in RPGs, it feels like. It's like, don't call it a comeback. RPGs have been around forever,
right?
But the streaming has certainly kind of revolutionized how people find RPGs and play RPGs. It's been quite a difference.
So Dom, this is going to be embarrassing, but I'm just going to admit it. Remember, I was like, I really know you from Kickstarter. Yeah, I backed Saving Free. I'm one of the backers.
Well, there you go.
That's why your name was from yeah, it wasn't a lot of money. I was like, let me just, okay. I'm almost was like, maybe I shouldn't mention it because it wasn't that much. But boy, have we come full circle. So obviously I believe in this because I backed it way back when. Because I was like, yeah, this, I always, as you were talking, I was like, this is coming back to me. But what a difference. So now, to your point, 2021. What a journey. I think it looks like, at least from your wiki page, which goes on for a while, obviously this is expanded to way more than D&D, right? So what's happening here? What's going on?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, we did D&D solid for a year. We had one show basically that we did for a little over a year in that garage. And our hope was always to expand. We were like, we're getting money in. People are tipping the channel and allowing us to kind of grow and see things. And they're also asking for new games to play. And like, we had games from our childhood that we enjoyed that, I wanted to play. Like I wanted to do Shadowrun, and I wanted to do TMNT and Other Strangeness. And I had, a list of games that I had played when I was a kid that I wanted to sort of introduce people to or reintroduce people to. And we were still talking about doing another tutorial. And the more we kind of got into it, we just started getting filtered people sending us games and RPGs to check out. And there's always something in the periphery that I knew about but I had never seen. And so as I started going to cons, I would test games out. I'd play Savage Worlds or Powered by the Apocalypse or whatever, and just the breadth of RPGs out there. And suddenly I was like, this is more than D&D. I want to show the world of RPGs, because to me it's important that everyone has that there is a place for everyone at an RPG table, and that there's an RPG designed for everybody. And I felt that while D&D was great, it is not the end all be all of RPGs. So I wanted to kind of, pay homage to the beginnings of RPGs, but also I wanted to expand people's knowledge and idea of what RPGs can and are, can be and are. So we branched out as soon as we were able to, excuse me, and play more systems. And yeah, people just kept coming in and going, oh, I've got an idea for a game, let's do this. Sure, okay, let's do it.
So I mean, this is obviously, I mean, part of it is that the world is coming around to what we like. That's the way I always say it. Like, I've been playing D&D pretty much since I was 7 years old, but the world now thinks it's cool. Great. I used to ignore the fact. I used to call it, it's geeky. It's not for everybody. And then one day I was like, I actually ran a D&D event for my Boy Scouts, and 3 of the 12-year-olds were like, oh yeah, my other campaign. And I was like, my mind just blew. But my son knows it so well that he's been playing since he's been 4, and he's like, okay, whatever. But like, I figure he's an anomaly, but here we are exposed to other children. And obviously it's a thing to the point that, and then we had 3 other players, and they had heard of it. I'm so nervous about bringing it up even sometimes, which is so funny because, again, 80s kid who brutalized by the rest of what went on then. And now it's like, people are like, oh, you mean the thing from Stranger Things? Or, oh, I want to see you play. The dad was like, that's fine. So it's just a different world. And obviously that momentum has shifted massively in the marketplace. Video, I would argue, being one of the primary means of dispelling any mystery around gaming. So thank you for, obviously I believe in it because I actually have the receipts that I stored. Which is this is really embarrassing. I didn't remember that. I'm surprised I'm mentioning it and admitting it on the stream, but it's fine. But now that you're here, I think this is massive. And like you said, it's growing with the demographics, right? Which is there's more games in D&D. There's many more people playing, and certainly if you look at the cast, it's a pretty diverse group, which is fantastic because that's the world. Where, as I always say, the reason gaming is growing is because there are people who are not the traditional people you expect to play gaming that are now discovering it, and that reflects the diversity of the world, which is fantastic. That means you're doing it right.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of our key things from the get-go. I mean, and this is coming from me. I'm a cishet white dude with a beard. Like I'm the demographic of RPGs. But it's broader than that. And when I started, it was rare that a woman would be playing D&D or any RPG. And so for me, I knew that wasn't the case. I knew that there were a lot of women out there playing RPGs. Sylvia backed me up on this. But there were a lot of women out there. And so when we first started Saving Throw, the initial thing was, well, I need to have women in the cast so that we have a balance. And that was the start. And now I look at it, I'm like, oh, you're so naive, Dom. I look at it and just go like, yeah, we had an all white cast and it was like, 4 dudes and 2 girls. And now I'm like, there's so much more to it. And it's so important to show off not just diversity, but inclusivity, and I feel like it's shifting a lot of how RPGs are designed and how they're presented nowadays. And it's certainly brought a lot of ugly things to light, but it's also helped kind of wash those away and bring something that's, I feel, is stronger and really strengthens the hobby as a whole. I think the more voices we get in this hobby, the better stories we get to tell, the better experiences we can have as players. And it's always been beneficial to me to have a diverse table, and it was very important to me to do that from the get-go, to show as much diversity as I could at our tables, because you're right, that's the way the world looks,
right.
And and it shouldn't be that, there's only people like me playing the game, because that's not true. When I go to conventions, there's a great mix of people who are playing and are interested and are creating RPGs. So Coyote and Crow is one that I backed on Kickstarter. It's a First Peoples Native American RPG, created by and completely by Native Americans, into the Motherlands. Is a completely Black owned and operated RPG system and stuff. And so it's like these things are coming out that they would have been niche at best, back in the day, when I started. And now they have a validity now, which is, I think, it's really important and really cool.
And one of the aspects of that I think is, and I've tried hard to make this point, and I'm not saying it anymore. I'll say it here, which is that diversity of experiences too. So there are people who have trauma who may not be the typical, cishet white guy gamer, or, that doesn't mean that cishet white guys gamer don't have trauma, but very often a lot of these conversations around X cards and other pieces have become important because the diversity of the fan base is actually people with experiences. And some of those people have certain games they would like to play in certain ways, and they need those tools. And that's hard sometimes to explain, because it's like, it's not just diversity of people and where they come from, it's a diversity of experience too. That's new to gaming. And that's changed too, to the better. But I think sort of roiled some people, because it was like, well, what do you need this for? I know my buddies, we don't have that problem. And you're like, but the world is now, first of all, people are playing who don't know each other. Certainly I've played at plenty of conventions. Certainly online is accelerated that 1,000% along with the pandemic. And you have diverse players from different backgrounds who are not necessarily look like one person or the other, and therefore they have different experiences too.
Yeah, well, and I say, yeah, you might have been playing with your friends and your buddies for 30 years, and you think that you know them.
Right.
But I guarantee you, because you're friends, you don't know what they're going through, Right. There are experiences that we don't, that we might be afraid to tell our friends or our buddies. We might be embarrassed, we might be whatever, and we don't want to say it. And I feel like RPGs have traditionally, I think, been avenues to explore issues of mental health and diverse backgrounds and issues. And I think that it's important to recognize that even at a table that you feel everyone's 100% comfortable, and you're never going to have an issue with this table, I can do whatever, I guarantee you can't. But you might get away with it, and so you might think that it's okay. But I always encourage people, because the other thing is, I always hear stories of people who are like, I've been playing with this group for years and years and years, and suddenly so and so is not okay with how I ran that combat, or that interaction with that NPC was inappropriate or something. It's like, it probably was inappropriate before,
right?
But you didn't realize it, and no one felt comfortable enough to bring it to your attention. So we kind of, the way we sort of avoid having that problem is by setting these safety cards, by doing lines and veils, or having X cards and stuff, and doing a session 0 before we even hit the screen. So we're all on the same page together. And that's, I think it's become very popular now for, I just started a home game a few weeks ago, and I sent them, I said, we've got an X card, and these are things that are, and everyone was like, okay, yeah, I get it. And, I don't think I needed to do that. I think everyone would have been fine, but I also don't want, there's no reason for me to not do it. So, yeah, I don't know. So it's something I feel like has become more, people are more used to it now, because it's been kind of focused on via the people who have been playing RPGs on the internet.
Right.
So yeah.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit because I think this is, sorry, did somebody want to say something? Sylvia, did you want to say something? I don't want to cut you off.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
It's a little complicated because we have two people playing, the gamer and the character.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they are two faces of the same coin, so to speak. Sometimes the character is stronger than the gamer,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it? Is that I feel like that, and sometimes the gamer uses the character most of the time. Sometimes on most of the gamer uses the character to express everything that in real life the gamer can do it.
Right.
Or
Yeah. And I think that's, I mean, to me, that's the beauty of RPGs, is being able to be someone that you're not, or in many cases, being the ultimate version of you, what you would be able to do if you could achieve that, and I that is that's just such a basic point of RPGs that I think is amazing. And sometimes it can backfire. I've certainly had people that think that they can do whatever because, oh, it's what my character would do, but that's never a fun experience for anybody. I feel like you still have to have that discussion. I have that in my home game right now, where one character will rob the other characters blind, and I was like, "It's okay. Does everyone understand that that's, are we okay with that?" Sure, yeah, we'll still adventure with this rogue that will steal everything out from under us. But I was like, okay, but yeah, having that conversation beforehand, before you start playing, I think is really important, so that you can have that differentiation between the character and the person, but then also, you can explore that with everybody else. I think it just makes for better role playing, and helps the entire group kind of understand what they're going for and telling that story. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I think Mark Reinhagen does. I don't know where is he now, but when he stayed in his games, the prelude, the storytelling before to develop the character. I think it's in that sense.
Yeah.
You do this. You just don't feel a form, roll the dice to see what a strength or the special abilities of your character, but you develop this. The master developed this with the gamer.
Right. Yeah.
And to that point, it's not an accident, Mark Reinhagen. We're talking about, mature themes sometimes too, right? So that's a different kind of role playing than you're used to, sort of just fighting a monster. So you're getting into more storytelling, and when you're dealing with that, again, this becomes more important because you're defining, and horror particularly, right? Where you're intentionally trying to play horrific themes. You'd want to be entertained, but you don't want to traumatize someone, right? And that is a very personal definition. Which is psychologists don't necessarily want to always just do that and not try to do it with 6 people at once at a table. It is an art that you develop by learning about people, and the reality is you hopefully learn as you go, with those session zeros, but it really is determined by those individuals. And the other thing is they have the right to say they don't like it or to change their mind.
Sylvia, it took a lot of work to get Mark to understand that. He enjoyed running traumatic games and traumatic characters right off the bat with no warnings. And some of those were absolutely ridiculous. The first werewolf playtest is an example of some of the other stupidity, that kind of work. Every player at the table was grossed out except for Mark and Stewart. But but in many cases, it's not that the character is stronger. It's that we have clearly defined weaknesses for that character. We know what the character's weaknesses are, and we don't know what ours are. We have them written down on our character sheet, and we can explore them. And we're fortunate in those times when we start seeing how those relate to our own lives. Having it spelled out and clear is so much easier than not knowing what they are for us. It makes role-playing games such a valuable exercise. Even if we don't have kleptomania, going to steal and rob everyone blind, we can see those aspects in ourselves when we play them out.
Right. Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, there was this in the beginning of 20th century. There was this Austrian psychiatrist Moreno. Do you know? Everybody knows about the Moreno was a psychiatrist, and also he loved to be on stage, to direct. On stage to acting. He was a director for people who wants to act and so on. And we really discovered that as a psychiatrist, but as a director of theater, he discovered that people liked the drama. They feel satisfied of seeing a drama. And the player, the actor, just enjoyed just the contrary of his real personality. So it was the hidden desires that are not accepted by the society. So they play marvelous robbers and prostitutes, every kind of, they play marvelous because in real life they cannot do these things. They really condemn, oh no, this is a robber, this is a prostitute, but they characters. So there is this thing of hidden desires that fortunately the society has a censorship. Otherwise we will be all mad. But I mean, this is a way of how we say, to release our anger, release all these bad feelings we feel. It's very, I think it's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, to that point, there's a reason why I come from a theater background, and so having actors are always, you know, saying that the bad guy is the juiciest role, you know, because there's so much more. I think in writing evil characters and bad characters, and not even that, but just characters like, you think of like Conan, you know, Conan's a barbarian and he just slices people in half willy-nilly. Like, he has no moral quandary with that, you know, and having that being that, yeah, you're exactly right, that there's that base instinct of, you know, I just need to, I want to do that, but I can't. We have a society, we have rules, we have laws. We can't just go around slicing people in half willy-nilly. But having that release through an RPG is really beneficial. But like I said, as long as everyone's okay with that going in, then you're cool. But yeah, it's always fascinating, I think.
So I do want to be sensitive to time, and I wanted to get a few more questions in. So I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. I mean, obviously you're a millionaire because you have 40,000 signed up members on YouTube. So you're done. You just retire on gaming. Is that how that goes, Tom?
Yeah.
How does that work?
So it doesn't cost anything to subscribe to us on YouTube. So we don't make. On YouTube, I make about, maybe if I'm lucky, I'll make about $100 a month on YouTube.
Wow, which is a tragedy, by the way. But that aside, for all
that's
YouTube creators, you know.
Yeah, that's just how it works. Yeah, I mean, for a little while, I was able to sustain myself and work full time at Saving Throw. I quit my day job and I worked there for a couple of years, and then I moved here to Salt Lake City. And the pandemic did a lot to kind of hurt, because we had a studio and then we couldn't use the studio, and shows that were kind of studio driven weren't able to really continue, but other shows were. So it kind of changed our whole dynamic a bit. And then when I moved out here, I had to find something else to do. So I went back to a day job, but I love it. But I still do Saving Throw as time permits. I mean, we had a show earlier today, actually, at Gen Con Online. So
fantastic. That's fantastic. So, and that was tongue in cheek, because I've written articles about like how much it would take you, how many millions of followers you would need.
Yeah.
One of the things we talked, I think Bill and I may have talked about this. I don't know I think you may have been on there as well, Andrew, is just talking about retiring in the future, right? As we've got gamers now who are actually sort of old enough to think about healthcare and retirement. One of the ways you potentially get there is through being these sort of massive personalities, right? So in other words, don't think about role playing, but think about it being an influencer. And if you have enough streams, you could potentially do it. But it's a long haul battle. And unfortunately, the platforms don't support it. So, but obviously, I think you are been successful. Whether or not it's financially successful, I think it's absolutely, at least from my eyes, hugely successful. So, what's your advice? Certainly, maybe even advice to yourself who started this years ago. What would you, for folks who are saying, I think I could do it. I could do that. What's involved? And what advice would you give for someone who thinks they want to start something similar, maybe not exactly the same?
I'd probably tell them to just, put the money they would spend on streaming equipment into the stock market and just wait. I have enjoyed every single bit of working on Saving Throw, and I wouldn't trade it at all. But certainly, if I were starting again, I would probably, do more focused work. Doing just RPGs, just playing RPGs, actual plays, is a really tough market, just because of the length of the show and people's attention spans, love them or hate them, Critical Role has a huge market share, and people are already devoting 4+ hours a week to watching Critical Role. Giving another show 2 to 3 hours is just not in the picture. So, everyone else is sort of fighting for table scraps, as it were.
Yeah.
The people that are successful, the people that you see all the time, are working so hard to keep relevance, basically, and it's that old kind of Hollywood thing. It's just be there. Be the person that people are calling when they need that person, and for me, Saving Throw has been able to sort of just maintain and stay steady, if not grow, because we've continued to, we do good work, and people just have been loyal and stick with us. And every year we gain, a few more followers, and it's just is a slow roll. Like the slope is very, very, minuscule, but it just slowly goes. And there are ways to go up and down, but maintaining the up is it's a huge haul. It's a giant task, and it involves being on. It's a social media personality, that's just where we are right now. And if you want to be big on YouTube or anything, you've got to be there all the time. And you have to realize, if I were to do this all over again, I would probably, because before, what I was doing, I wasn't on screen at the beginning. I wasn't even on a show for the first 3 years of Saving Throw. And then people knew about me kind of from the background, and I would yell out once in a while, on a show or something like that. But Saving Throw, I think, was hampered because I treated it like a network. The show was the star, not me, not anybody else, but the show. And that works well, kind of. But really, what works, what you see the groups that kind of skyrocket, or you didn't even know where they came from, and then suddenly they're huge. It's usually one person who's made that their thing. If I were starting out, I would be 100%. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do all the tutorials, and I'm going to do all these, how to paint your character, how to make your character, how to do this, how to do that, how to do this, all of those types of things like really go far when they get behind a single person. But when it's a group, it's much harder. You really got to sell people on that story, on those characters, and then hope that they have the time to watch that show. So I would probably cut back on the actual plays and do a lot more tutorial type videos, and I would probably do it with one person.
Right.
So
yeah, and then certainly that's what we're seeing. That was my comment about sort of almost approaching it as if it's a lifestyle. Frankly, is sort of what I've seen is successful. And that's hard because, for those of us who, have day jobs or families and other things we're trying to support, and you're like, oh, by the way, I'm going to be always on, right? That's the life of the streamers. Right. We've had, it was an interesting situation. We had somebody that we knew who became a streamer, but they had to basically quit their old life to do it. Because streaming life sort of means, that maybe things are said or done or whatever that's not going to work, or be your boss may not be thrilled about it, if they find out later. And it's not bad. It's just that it's a totally different life. You're giving up your life to do that. Sorry,
one second.
Yep, sure.
The gaming group just charged in.
They're like, let's go.
Ready.
He may be between videos for all we know, so he may. And then we asked him to do another video.
He's a streamer. He's in trouble now.
We asked him to do more videos. Like, let's do a video about your streaming. So, because you're not sick of streaming yet. I'm sure he's running. Oh man,
those are some obscenities. Fun reading his lips. You Bratton, Fratton, Fritton, Froden.
That's funny.
Oh, I didn't know he knew that word. Tell him to go to hell. Giving him the directions.
Okay. Sorry.
No worries. No worries. We're taking up your time, so I apologize. We're running over a little bit, but it's been really eventful and helpful. To your point, I think that was great. And in terms of what your advice, it's been quite illuminating. And the future, what's the future for Saving Throw now? With that said, is it just going to be you?
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. No, I mean, that's the thing is I kind of made the decision to sort of make peace with where we're at with what we're doing, and just kind of focus on one or two shows and move forward with that. If I didn't have a day job, I would probably be I would be doing more content, more tutorial type stuff and things of that nature. But I made the decision to focus on our we have a Coffee and Patreon page, and I operate those and write like one-page adventures and do a bunch of other things for our backers there, and kind of maintain things that way, and then spend a lot of time making the best content I can possibly make when I can. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it is a lifestyle change, and my girlfriend and and families and all of that stuff were like, you pick. You got to decide which one you want to do, because I could easily be on. I could have a show every night of the week, every weekend, and all throughout the day. I could easily. There's absolutely no problem with that. That could happen. But it's like at a point, you also have to live the life, and I decided I wanted to live the life rather than do that. So yeah, so saving throw continues, and it's as strong as it ever was, but we're sort of, we've ramped production down, so we don't have as many shows as we used to. But yeah, hoping to keep at it as long as people will watch it.
That's fantastic. And one of the blessing and the curse of all this is that you will know by your metrics and your video and your views, you will know if it's working or not working. You know it right away. And certainly I have a Patreon, and I know when I don't do things right. I know when I'm something's popular, what isn't. So we're over time. I do want to wrap up. Tell me, and I will send a note. We will send a note out, because I will make sure we get all your socials. Where can we find you? Obviously, Saving Throw on YouTube. Where else? What else can we support?
We're Saving Throw Show everywhere. So all one word, Saving Throw Show. On YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, Instagram, Coffee, or Ko-Fi, however you want.
I never know how to.
I always say Ko-Fi, but I was recently told it's coffee because you buy someone.
You buy someone a coffee. Yeah, it took me a while to realize that too. Yeah, I'm right there with
you. But I'm like, it's Wi-Fi, not Wi-Fi. Anyway. You can find me at all those places. Tomorrow, I am doing a similar talk at Gen Con, again, Gen Con Online, on our Twitch channel at 5 o'clock, I believe, again, of how to produce an RPG, a live stream RPG. So if you want to do more of this or talk about more of this, get a ticket. It's free. Badges are free to Gen Con Online, and
that's
would love
great.
to have you.
And you have Twitter? Is there where we can find you on? Is it all Saving Throw Show? Is that what you said? Saving Throw Show is everywhere. If you want my personal Twitter, which honestly is just me retweeting Saving Throw Show most of the time, I am at Gadzook, Gadzzook. Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I don't want to take more of your time. I know you're busy. I appreciate you coming. But you're a member now. We're not gonna let you go. So no, you're a member. I'm in for life. So well, definitely what I'll do is I'll send a note out with all this. So, and what I put it on my YouTube. We still don't even have our own YouTube yet. We got to do that. Speaking of video and doing things right. So it's just my channel right now, but we'll put this stream up, and we look forward to hearing from you more. I hope you come back. So we can talk more, because we could easily talk like 3 hours just about some of these topics. So